Welcome to the YouTube channel for the Independent Thinker, where our goal here is to inspire conversation through transparent information, clarity of thought, and unbiased presentation. Today we'll be going through our first topic, whether we as a society should enact additional lockdowns due to the COVID-19 pandemic. As you all may be aware, we have been in a pandemic for almost 10 months now, with the number of daily confirmed cases in the US climbing to its highest levels ever. This concern about a second wave of infections has brought up talks about potentially enacting another lockdown, similar to what we saw in the spring. There's been a tremendous amount of controversy in regards to whether that action is appropriate or not, with two main sides forming, either for an additional lockdown or against an additional lockdown. Both sides have multiple substantial reasons in favor of this argument. However, for the sake of this video, we will take a look at the three most potent points. So without further ado, let's get started. So let's start with the case for lockdown. The first reason being that another lockdown would help reduce the already current rise in daily cases. There are over 12 million cases in the US, with nearly 200,000 new daily cases at the time of creating this video. This is a staggering amount and something that immediate actions such as a lockdown would help reduce. As we saw in the previous graphic, there are over 260,000 people who have died from the coronavirus, which is nothing short of a tragedy and something that calls for concerned action to help mitigate the damage. Since cases are rising, the concern is that an increase in cases will inevitably bring on more deaths, regardless of the improvement in healthcare and percentage of deaths from infections. This is why a rash measure such as a lockdown is well justified. The next reason for a lockdown is the need to limit exposures, especially those who are at risk. The death rate in people with existing conditions or over a certain age is magnitudes higher than the average person. This is why an economic and social lockdown to help minimize exposure to others in these groups is of tremendous importance, especially to the increasing percentage of the population that is of older generations. The third case for a lockdown is to wait for a safe and effective vaccine. That is, lock down the country until a vaccine is made available to the majority of the population. This would ensure the minimum number of cases and deaths possible, as there would be limited exposure and contact until the majority of people are vaccinated, at which point society may resume normal activities. With positive news from 3 producers of vaccines in the past couple weeks, locking down the country until those vaccines are able to be distributed to the public would help minimize the number of infections. Now, for the case against a lockdown. Let's start with the assertion that there are better alternatives to a complete economic and social lockdown. For example, a partial lockdown, where there are still social distancing in place, would help the economy open to those who are willing to resume normal activities. This would allow resources to be focused on the population who is at risk and still in a lockdown. In addition, businesses would be unrestricted and allowed to reopen, which would help stimulate and revitalize the pandemic-ridden economy. If you are interested in reading more about the potential alternatives to a lockdown, I have left a link in the description so you can check out the Great Barrington Declaration, which is a proposal made by a few Ivy League medical doctors. Next case against a lockdown is the skepticism about the number of cases. Simply, can they be trusted, and are they accurate? For example, are deaths being misattributed to COVID? Are they counting people who test positive on consecutive days as separate cases? Are these cases then all being added to the cumulative total? What about all the false positives? Are they counted initially, then taken out after being found false? Or do they leave that false positive in the cumulative account? There are many claims on both sides of this issue in regards to accuracy in the counting, especially since most of the counting is done at the state and local levels. However, the assertion made against a lockdown is that these numbers are inflated in order to induce fear. The last claim against a lockdown is that there are collateral and unintended consequences due to a lockdown. These range from economic to social to mental issues. The economic impact of a lockdown is pretty evident, as seen in the impact of the unemployment rate in April during the lockdown, as shown in the graph. This rate has decreased, however, as restrictions have slowly lifted, as you can see in the October 2020 rate. There are many other economic factors that we could look at, but the overall impact of a lockdown is well explained in the graph before you. The social impacts include emotional symptoms of isolation, such as difficulty concentrating, boredom, loneliness, and the other symptoms as shown in the study by Frontiers. These factors are probably a result of the pandemic as a whole, not solely lockdowns. However, lockdowns and social isolation most likely will not improve these conditions. Lastly, we see the mental health issues caused by the coronavirus, and lockdowns especially. Substance abuse and other mental health issues, such as depression, have increased. This is largely due to the pandemic as a whole, but the impact of isolation and restrictions of a new lockdown would adversely affect these issues. There are solid points on both sides of the issue. For example, there is no doubt a lockdown will decrease the number of cases and consequently deaths. However, the case against would argue at what cost in terms of further hurting the economy and the social and mental health of individuals. There is clearly no correct solution, as each choice has collateral impacts on the health of society. We at the Independent Thinker want to stress that we take no side in this issue, and only hope to help improve the conversation around this topic. We strongly believe the best conversations start with a question that ultimately leads you to understanding each of the sides of this issue and their perspective. We hope we have accomplished that for you in this video by providing both perspectives on the issue so that you can come to your own conclusion about what is the best course of action. Let us know in the comments what your conclusion is. Also, let us know if we have left out any important points in this discussion. Thank you for watching, and please like the video if you enjoyed, and consider subscribing so you can catch all of our upcoming content. All the best, and remember, the best conversations start with a question. First I said no, I got some plans for tonight, and then I stop and say alright.